You're listening to the uMentor Talk Show, now available on the Emoji app. I'm your host, Fatima Al Sayed, and on this weekly talk show, we usually invite experts to take us through their journeys as professionals in their fields. And remember, if you have any questions for our panelists, you can always leave them in the comments section and we'll get to them during our show. Today's show is brought to you by Card Connect Florida. They make payments simple, secure, and reliable. On today's show, we welcome Zainab Merchant, who is also known as Zainab Writes. She is an award-winning writer and journalist who often writes about social justice and spiritual activism. Make sure to tune in next week at 3 p.m. to hear from our next guests. Assalamu alaikum, Zainab. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam. How are you?
I'm doing well. First of all, I wanted to wish you a happy Eid Ghadir.
Eid Ghadir Mubarak.
And inshallah to all of our listeners as well. Very excited to have you on our show today because there's been a lot going on around the world and you've been doing a lot to create change and raise awareness in these important issues. So inshallah, we'll get more to that.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, it's our pleasure, honestly. So before we get into it, let's just give us a rundown of your educational background so our listeners know what background you come from.
So I did my undergrad as a double degree in political science and homeland security. Mm-hmm. And I'm currently in my master's program, my final semester at Harvard University, and studying journalism and international security.
And from my knowledge, you are also a businesswoman. That's what you started off as. So can you tell us a little bit about your business?
So yes, I have recently launched a specialty table and kitchenware food blog called Table in Paradise. We sell kitchen products and high quality tableware, and it's all it's related to food as well and food writing, and also falls into my journalist kind of journalism angle as well.
Because it's also a blog as well, right?
Exactly, yeah. More content-based.
Yeah. And then you went on, so you had your kids, 2 kids, and then you decided that you wanted to study journalism out of nowhere?
No, actually, the truth is that I kind of got sick of the political world after graduation. I just felt very jaded, just like many millennials today. Felt very overwhelmed that I couldn't really make change. So I took a break after undergrad. I had my baby, and right after graduating university, and went on to start writing books. And I have a very creative side, so I love illustrating and sketching. So I wrote my first book. It took 2 years because I sketched all the artwork in the book as well.
And this is Princess Siana's pen or To Be a Muslim?
Princess Siana's pen.
Okay.
Yeah. And
your daughter's name is Siana as well, which is so cute.
But yeah, so I really enjoyed that process, and I felt like I was just going to be an author all my life. A friend took me out for coffee, and she really railed on me and said, you have all these talents of writing and speaking. Why don't you do something with that, with what's going on in Yemen? And I really felt that, she was onto something. I researched everything for myself. And then I just felt like this was my calling as well. I couldn't ignore what was happening. And so I actually took my senior professor's offer that he would give me a personal recommendation. And I said, if I'm going to go back to school, I wanted to go to the best school that could challenge me. And that's how I ended up at Harvard with actually 2 kids at the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And and I put my author career on a hold at the time. And that's how I ended up. Actually, at that time, there was a lot going on. As I told you, I actually took all this Yemen stuff to an influencer that I really looked up to and who spoke often about human rights issues.
Yeah.
And she told me that, this wasn't fitting with her whole blog, and it was like very off-putting. And so that really made me feel down, and I felt like I guess I would have to do things myself.
Mm-hmm.
Not, people wouldn't really do things for me in the way that I really wanted to see the work being done.
Yeah.
So I was very overwhelmed. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. And no one would think that, looking at me now, people know me as Zainab Wright, that I went through all these struggles, but
Yeah.
that was how I got started.
Were you always outgoing and outspoken?
No, actually, I'm very shy as a person. I am very extroverted, but only when it comes to people I know.
Mm-hmm.
I've really learned a lot during my activism. It's actually helped me become more like outgoing, but as an individual, I'm very introverted.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like, the corner, and I like, the same kind of people. So
Mm-hmm.
I have my kinks. So
And has it been hard? How many years is your program, your master's program?
the program itself was supposed to be done within 3 years, but I took a long time because I had the two children, and right at the beginning of when I started school,
Mm-hmm.
um, I actually found out that I was expecting again my
Oh,
third
wow.
baby, which was a very big shock for me because I felt like
Mm-hmm.
I planned my whole life out. But alhamdulillah, like, Harvard was very understanding.
Mm-hmm.
A gap year for a year to have my baby right after she was born.
Yeah.
So it's taken me, this is like almost fifth, like when I graduate in May,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be 5 years from start to
Wow.
finish. Yeah. So I really took my time,
It's
and
determination. That's good, though.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
been
that's very good.
an amazing journey.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely been hard. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
What's the hardest part? I imagine you have to travel out to Boston,
Yeah.
right?
So the weird thing is, the hardest part wasn't the traveling. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Even though my husband and I had a really good schedule, because the kids barely felt that I was gone. I would leave in the evening,
Mm-hmm.
the day before. I would go, not the day of. For example, my classes would be at night. I would
Mm-hmm.
in the afternoon, evening-ish. I would make it's just a 2-hour flight. Um,
Okay.
Make it straight from airport to class, do two back-to-back classes, then sleep a night at a hotel, and be back the next morning around like
Mm-hmm.
at Fajr time. So they would
Yeah.
barely know that I was gone. It'd be like, oh, mama's.
And it was just once a week?
Yeah, once a week.
Okay.
Sometimes I wouldn't have to go if there are assignments that I could turn in. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been really flexible in that sense. But the hardest part was like obviously bringing the work home.
Mm.
A student, there's a lot of mental work that goes into like the homework, the writing, the research.
Yeah.
So that was a struggle because, with mom life, you really have to focus on the kids as well. And then
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, have to go back, and at night when they go back to sleep, I
Get
can't
up.
put my feet up and watch TV. I have to put in
Mm-hmm.
the work for classes.
So, how do you balance everything that you do? Because you do quite a lot, from your blog to Zainab Writes,
Mm.
your food blog to Zainab Writes. Then you have also COVID-19, the relief that
Mhm.
you created, Angels for COVID.
Mhm.
The books, we'll put them aside because those are done. But
That's
also, you're,
coming out. So
oh,
hopefully,
that's amazing.
soon. Yeah, yeah.
So, how do you balance it all?
I think I really don't think about it too much.
Hmm.
I really have, the Nike motto, just do it. I the more if I think about things, I'll get overwhelmed, obviously.
Yeah.
But I do have a very like normal routine where I wake up, I listen to this motivational segment every morning.
Hmm.
It's been going on for like a long time. There is a segment on YouTube that talks about how Imam Ali describes God. It's very motivating, and it's like a 24-minute segment. And I drink my coffee, and I have my eggs, and I watch that, and that really helps me have really like a set mindset of how I want to go about my day. And it really puts my things in perspective, that why I'm here, my purpose on earth, my relationship with my faith and the people around me. And so that really, I feel like, sets me, grounds me with my intention. and I just divide up my day and compartmentalize. Obviously, being a mom and running the house and being a wife, that takes up 90% of my time, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, like with having 3 kids, obviously, like running a home is like running a restaurant and a hospital and a school all at once. Um, there's a lot of time goes in there, but when their kids are in school, when the father is with them, taking them to the park, I really can get a lot of work done. And I barely watch TV. I do. I'm not saying I'm not going to, but I also have a very scheduled time set aside for that me time. But other than that, it's just a lot of productivity.
So where did the name Zainab Writes come from, and how did you decide to start this?
So all my life I've been very passionate about human rights and just fighting for social justice, even if it was through my writing, just speaking to people. And my husband knew that about me for a long time. So he started calling me, like, just as a nickname, Zainab Writes, because I like to write and I talk about human rights. And so when we started this blog, for me to put my thoughts out there, especially about Yemen. It was just an easy choice. It was for fun, like in the sense that I didn't think anything would become something. Obviously, no one starts out with that mindset, and the name stuck, and that's how it came to be. I lost audio. Can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I was saying, what issues do you think are the issues that are important for you to raise? Because I think a lot of people will send you messages and say, why aren't you talking about this? Why did you choose this to speak about? So what helps you to choose what issues you want to highlight around the world?
So I think obviously one person can't talk about everything. I think I realized that very early on. It gets very overwhelming right now with the advent of social media and digital media. It's like we know about so many things that we wouldn't have known about. And to be everywhere, it's not possible. And I will get a lot of messages being like, why are you talking about one thing and why are you not talking about this thing? And I always tell people, like, when somebody chooses to be passionate about something, for me, it would be Yemen. It's not that I'm downplaying other issues, it's that I have really gotten close to the subject matter. I've really studied it inside and out. And, that's something that I feel comfortable talking about.
Yeah.
There's many issues that we really don't know much about. And we can't really jump on the bandwagon and be like, be people that are just following the trends. We really have to know the issues and dissect it, because the world of journalism, I realized there's so many angles, there's so much falsehood and truth, and you can't really do justice to it by being part of like a hashtag movement. You really have to dissect the issue, and you should really speak about things that you have knowledge about, and it doesn't undermine every other issue. Obviously, we should try to understand the issues. And something that's really important to me is working locally rather than globally. A lot of times we forget that. We forget that, like, specifically as Muslims, we need to give back to our local societies. So, for example, my work, with this relief organization, Angels for COVID, would be, I would say, 10 times more important than everything that I do on social media. Just because I have that really like one-to-one interaction on ground with people. I know what's happening in my backyard. I'm able to assist people that, I otherwise wouldn't have if I didn't do this work. So, I would just say to like really think globally, but act locally.
In terms of journalism, you mentioned a little bit about it, but this field is, I think, harder for Muslim women to tap into.
Yeah.
Do you have plans to work for a corporate media organization? And if you don't, what's your reasoning?
Yeah, so I feel like I've done a lot of work since the beginning of my journey with journalism. I wrote a lot of pieces about Yemen. I tried to There were good pieces. I got good grades in them, so it wasn't, it wasn't the way I wrote it. It was the content, and I realized very early on that media outlets did not want this content. And there was one independent outlet that wanted me to change some things. And I realized that, I couldn't really be openly speaking the truth unless I really worked for myself, pretty much. So with Zainab Rights, I've been extremely strict about, not promoting anything in terms of getting money from anyone, any kind of ads, any kind of sponsorships. I just don't want my, I guess, truth to be tainted with where I think there's a lot of strings attached, and a lot of the work we see out there is so watered down, and not everyone's getting the real truth. So I don't have plans to work for corporate media ever, unless a big miracle happens and they start telling the truth. So,
and getting the things from the people who are actually living in those situations, which is something that you do very well, reaching out to those sources and getting them on, especially your sources from Yemen, which is truly incredible. So something else I wanted to get into a little bit is, what is, when you started out, did you outwardly say your sect in Islam, and did that create some kind of conflict for you later on when you did tell people?
So I felt like there was no need for me to really just be like, oh, I'm Shia, I'm Shia, I'm Shia, right? Like, obviously we're all Muslim.
Of course.
So, and my religion's obviously a big part of who I am. And so I was always unapologetically Muslim, and that's how I had really put myself out there. A lot of my following, even till today, is Sunni and non-Muslim. You'll see that a lot of people really, like, I felt there's a kinship with me and the people who follow me and respect my work and support me. And in that sense, trust me. There's a lot of trust, and you could see that with my recent research of Yemen and the organizations, and how I figured out, there's a big scam going on with all these organizations. And so many people, really resonated with my work. And for the first time, I saw the fruits of years of doing the same kind of work, where today there's so much respect and trust between me and the people. But recently, there's a lot of oppression happening against Shias and minorities. And, with the recent bombings in the maternity ward in Afghanistan, obviously I'm very outspoken about these issues. And I just I felt like it was high time that I just start speaking about my faith and obviously I am Muslim, but there are certain parts, like yesterday was Eid al-Ghadir, and I said I'm going to speak about who I am. And because of that kinship and that trust that I've already built with the people, so many people, I've had hundreds and probably over 600-700 messages that I've read. There's many that I haven't been able to get to, asking me about more info about Shia material, how to be a Shia, how to what is the differences. A lot of curiosity.
A lot of people don't know.
They don't know. They've never met a Shia. For many people, I'm the only Shia person that they know. Many influencers have come to me and said, "You're the only Shia person I follow. Can you teach me more about how you and I are similar or different?" They're Muslim influencers. So I felt like there's a lot of people who are open-minded and who've learned a lot about my faith through social media, which otherwise would have never happened.
And it's more about just bringing that awareness and I think respect into both sects respecting each other, which is very nice.
I actually have a photo op next week with a good friend who helped me start. I got to know her through my relief organization, and she is Sunni, and we're going to be doing a huge photo op about Shia Sunni unity.
That's
amazing. I think more of that kind of work needs to be done.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's good that you're starting that. I think there's a lot of discomfort when people find out that you're a Shia, and I don't sometimes understand why.
Yeah.
What are the what are the stereotypes about Zainab Wrights that you want to break down?
I think that, like today, for example, I had gone to an event, a baby shower,
Mm-hmm.
in the morning, and but many people know me as Zainab Wrights, and I'm very close to the person whose baby shower it was. And many people came up and they saw me cracking jokes and like I'm being this huge goofball that I usually am. And they're like, well, we didn't know you were like this, we thought you were so intense. um, so I think a big stereotype about me is that I'm this revolutionary warrior, like, out to like go against the government or rebel or something like that. I'm like, no, man, I'm just like honestly an average mom who's just trying to do her best at home. And mostly, I'm just normal with my kids and my family. Activism is a part of me, but again, it's a part of me. And I really truly believe that it can be a part of anyone's life without it being all of your life. So I appreciate that about Islam. It's taught me to be a balanced and holistic individual. And I think we can all find that activist in us that wants to change or challenge like societal paradigms. And that we can all do that in our own kind of way.
What's your piece of advice to our youth who are looking to get into careers like journalism or similar careers that are not met with such, I think, excitement from parents or community members or, our culture?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think so. The answer to that is two-part. I think the first one is that, obviously journalism and activism, these are not very, I would say, mainstream careers, especially in our cultures. It's like either lawyer or doctor or anything that helps you make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But like I feel like journalism today is the most important career anyone could do, just because of the lies that are plaguing our society. And honestly, we live in a world of information wars. The wars that you see all around us, you see the burning of all these countries, you see so many people, like you said, hating Shias, hating people that they don't know of because that's what they've been brainwashed to believe. And we honestly have no excuse anymore because so many people are now finding their information and scrolling for media on social media. And, honestly, social media is the newspaper of today. So if we are able to really understand how this journalism world works, really build a career out of that, then we need more good people to join the fight against all the evil that's plaguing our society. And I promise you, it's the most rewarding thing. Like, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. Um, but it's, at the end of the day, you're always going to go to sleep very, very happy that you tried your best. And that's how I feel personally, that, this job gives me a lot of peace to know that, I'm really doing everything that I can and I have no regrets. And the second part is, I think, the cultural aspect, especially for a woman. Um, I've had a lot of challenges personally. In my culture, I'm Indian, Pakistani, African Khoja. So it's been a very difficult journey in that sense. My family and culture and society, and especially like even my husband's family, really didn't look favorably on a woman not just doing this job, but being so outspoken, so out there. A woman should be
Visible.
she should be invisible. She should be hidden. And this is a big thing for a lot of people to swallow. Like, oh, who does she think she is? Is she better? Does she think she's better than us? Or look at her husband. He must be so whipped. He's,
It's as if like being hidden is connected with piety.
Exactly. Yeah. So I believe spirituality is so weaponized against activism in that sense. Then it's such a big excuse for people to be like, oh, conveniently, let's not speak out because obviously then that person is not as pious. Whereas I would disagree. I think that activism is something every youth should be encouraged to do,
Yeah.
because it brings you closer to Islam and brings you closer to your religion. For me, activism is why I'm so deeply religious, and I continue to want to learn more about Islam, because there's been moments, there's so many obstacles, right? You'll find yourself alone. You'll find yourself alone with the truth. You're like, I know the truth, but no one's listening. And I had a lot of these struggles.
Yeah.
You'll find yourself very, like, facing an uphill battle after battle, and you'll feel like, oh my gosh, like, who is there with me? And it's that realization that, you just need God. You don't need anyone else to believe in you. And so I would say, like, just find that light within you and go for it. Don't let anyone make you think otherwise, especially if your intention is so good.
Yeah. I wrote down, is activism a spiritual journey? And that's what I was going to ask you next.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's a huge, I think, especially if you wake up with that intention every day, that how do I get close to you? How do I make you happy? How do I make you proud of my existence here on earth? Because God put all of us here for a purpose. There's no, like, you're not in that, like, you're not replaceable. This whole capitalistic world has made everyone think that they're so disposable. They're so, yes, we are insignificant in the large aspect of things in relationship to God. But if we realize that we are God, we're from God, we're the breath of God, and He created us to be close to Him, then we would definitely not look down upon ourselves, and we would understand that we're very valuable, and have we have to achieve that value here on earth.
Inshallah, we can do that, and we can all try to go towards that. I think activism side of us. I think you can be. What are the ways? Does it have to be you going online and fundraising, or what are the ways that people can be, active and raising awareness?
So I've spoken to a lot of people, especially women. Women are, for me, it's like very close to my heart. Women empowerment. And many women have come to me privately and said, look, Zainab, I can't do what you're doing. My husband won't allow me. My father won't allow me. I can't really have a voice. I can't be seen. And what can I do? What can I do? And I say to everybody, look, you guys, like, I know you're struggling. You have your limitations, but you can definitely be an activist, even whatever situation you have. So, for example, when it comes to Yemen, people don't realize how important phone banking is, right? If you have a phone, you can call your, congressman, state representative, and let them know your position about Yemen. Many people won't do that. Donate, tell people in your own family tables, your dinner tables. You won't. I feel like the biggest thing that I do in my life is educate my children. And today they're growing up. I have an 8-year-old son who knows so much about Yemen, and he's constantly putting them at the forefront. He said he got Eid money. He said, I want to donate that to Yemen.
That's so sweet.
So, like, we can take those little steps. And activist doesn't mean you have to be on the megaphone. It can be that you're that mother who's instilling a sense of revolution in your kids. Revolution means change, and consistent change against unjust systems. So we live in a world of so much injustice and tyranny, and a lot of us don't want to think about that, and we don't want our comforts to be challenged. But at the end of the day, if we think about why we're here on earth and where we're going back to, and we think about our death, then we'll realize that all these materialistic things, my home, even my kids, my husband, they're not going to be coming with me. And so what am I leaving this world with? We're not going to live here forever. This is not our destination. The hereafter is our destination. So what are we taking with us? And I think if we keep that constantly in the forefront, then we will let that move us towards the right kind of activism.
I think the biggest issue with journalism today is storytelling about marginalized communities. What's your advice, and how do you think that how do you think we can create change in that realm?
I think, like you said, storytelling, I think, is the biggest vehicle that we have in our power right now. If a person learns how to storytell the right way, we all can be storytellers. How would you tell a story to a kid at home? How would you build like a plot? How would you relate to that and have that emotional factor? And I think, especially as women, we do that really well. We have a really good hold on storytelling, and I found that to be, my background as a writer and a storyteller. Even now, as I write my books and like I'm using that creative aspect, it is so hugely influential to my work right now in reaching people. Spoken word artists and poetry, you can see all these elements really move people. And that ethos that you use to move people, you have to use that in your ability, like your, I guess, end goal in terms of activism, because you can't get people to act unless you bring that aspect in, that, hey, how does that relate to me? Why should I care about this issue? Well, for example, so I really talk a lot about my kids, my relationship to them. And that's why, for me as a mother, like this whole thing in Yemen is totally destroying me, because I have this connection with the children of Yemen, the orphans of Yemen. I feel like, what if they were my kid? What if, like, who is looking after them? My country is sending these bombs and is helping do this damage. And if I feel that and I make other people feel that, they're going to be more inclined to act towards ending that suffering.
And you were on, I think you're on both sides of this storytelling radar with what happened to you at the airport. Can you give us a little bit? I don't think you've only talked about it once, I think.
Yeah.
Do you want to, basically tell people what the lies are?
I think so. So this happened to me a while ago, and I was one of the many people in America during the Obama administration that got put into a watch list. And it wasn't like I had thought initially that it was to do with my work as somebody who's always, constantly talking against the government. But then I found that there are so many people on the watch list that are not active or activists. So they're just normal people whose name or something, or where they visited, like going to Ziyara or like Hajj or anywhere that they've traveled. Anything can pretty much put you on a watch list, especially if you're Muslim, especially if you're wearing a hijab. So I found a lot of people during my detainments at the airport wearing the hijab, or being Middle Eastern background, or being Muslim. And I knew right away that I cannot be quiet about this, because it's unbearable. And I used to travel a lot, obviously, from my school. And this was a weekly thing. It got to the point where, and I think my end point, because my husband is very different than me. He's very not outspoken. He's very calm and patient. And he's like, Zainab, we'll get over this. Don't don't make a big thing out of this. So I kept quiet for around 2 years. And it got to a point where it affected my kids. And when we would take family trips, they would separate me, me and my husband and the children. They would pat them down, and they were so little. And they would be like,
it's scary.
It was very scary because I couldn't see them. I didn't know what was going on with them. And as a mother, your heart goes out. And then I started fighting, and it became a big thing. And I'm like, don't touch my kids. And it's just you don't want those kind of encounters when you're just taking a vacation. And so we stopped taking vacations.
Yeah.
It started impacting our life. And I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? Why am I not speaking out against this? And, it's easier said than done, especially when it happens to you. And you're like, well, everyone was like, Zainab, don't speak out against this. If you speak out, they'll do worse to you.
And it's like you feel that responsibility of I'm going to put a target on my family's back, you know?
Even more so. Right now, and it's so sad that, a lot of times we think, especially when we're being oppressed or abused, And even in this case, it was very emotional kind of abuse for 2 years going on. You don't know. At that point, you're still telling yourself that it might get better. It could be worse. It could be worse. And you're subjecting yourself to this kind of treatment because you just don't want it to get worse. And it's like having a bad marriage, right? The abuser, you keep getting away with things because you're like, well, he still gives me this and he still gives me that. And I just, it got to a point where I got really fed up, and I'm like, look, you know, either this is going to get worse or it just keeps going like this. But either way, they're really trampling on my rights, and I can't live like this. And the sad part was nobody was speaking out. Everybody was doing the same thing that I was. The thousands of people on this watch list. And I made a decision. I didn't care what, everyone was telling me. Like at this point, I was just like, I'm so sick of this.
I'm the one living this, it's not your experience.
And so I put out a word, and for the ACLU actually reached out to me when one of my videos, I think, went like viral. They reached out to me and they said, look, if you want to fight this, we'll help you and you'll become our face case. So I thought about this and I was like, okay, let's do this. So it was a long journey. And the more I fought, the worse it became, the treatment. Wow. Like everyone was right. Like they became even more agitated with me. Oh, she's speaking out. So the FBI actually took me out to dinner one day. And they said that, if you want us to remove you from this list, you have to do something for us. And they took me to a 5-star restaurant. And I told them, what is it that you want me to do? And they said that we want you to be an informant for your mosque. Wow. And you're so well-spoken, you're so intelligent. I think you could be a huge asset to the FBI. And I said, really? What do you want me to inform on? They're like, well, we know that a lot of people are allied with, what's happening with Iran and the Shias that really like, Khamenei or Khomeini. I was like, I got up right there and then I said, look, I'm a mom. I'm not a spy. I'm not here to spy for anyone. I'm never going to do this. I don't know what made you think I would. And I left very angrily, and they were just sitting there. And I guess I was so angry that I didn't think of the consequence of me just leaving so angrily. Maybe I could have done it better, but I am a hothead. When people start messing with me, I stopped thinking about the actual consequences. And right after that incident, that huge incident happened that everyone knows about. My trip to Harvard, I was detained, and I was menstruating, so they actually stopped me from that. I've already gone through the body scan, and nothing came up. Because you can see, right? Yeah. Everything lights up. Nothing was lit up, and the women said, I want to pat her down. And so the officers were right there, and they did a really, really grueling pat down in front of everyone, like on the private parts everywhere. And that woman, she had a smirky smile on her face, and she tells the other supervisor that there's something in her groin area that we really need a deeper look on. And it got to a point where I was just screaming. I was like, no, I don't. Because at that point now I know, what if I'm going to die
this
today?
Is assault.
Yeah, I thought that they just want an excuse to put me in a private room and kill me. So they're like, no, we need to take you into the room and this and that. And I was just not having it. I said, let me call my lawyer. Let me at least, do
call
something.
Someone.
Let me ask someone. I'm all alone here. And nobody knows, what's happening to me. And they're like, nope, you can't use your phone. You can't go back. You can't turn around. You can't go forward. You're going to be stuck here. And then they called the state troopers, 7 feet tall guys with guns, loaded. And it seemed like they wanted me to fight back so that they could put
have an excuse.
Yeah. And ended up going into it was like a closet, and they strip searched me. They pulled everything down. At least it was 2 female officers. And then I was just I couldn't let them see how upset I was. I was holding back my feelings. And then I come out and they're just smiling. They just did not care. They wanted me to be so humiliated. And then I asked for their badges because I think at this time I was just like so fed up, and I said, whatever. You know, when you
It can't get worse.
it can't get worse. Yeah. I've already felt like I was going to die. So might as well. So they started covering up their badges because they knew that something was wrong. And I think they didn't know that they messed with the wrong person because I went around, managed to get all their names, went to the state troopers. They didn't know I was watching. I wrote down their names, and then they turn around and I'm like, look, I'm going to report all of you guys. You guys don't know what you've done today. And just had this really strong attitude. But then I went to the bathroom and just cried. And I was on the phone with my lawyer, and he's like, we're going to fight this. And so just from that incident, things got like worse. And then people started knowing about this, and there was a huge petition the entire world signed. And then flew down to Orlando, and really had a chance to speak to Congress people and tell them my situation. And the entire airport team was there as well. And then the FBI officers that had took me out for dinner were there as well. And I was surprised to see them. And I think they were really like scared to see me.
Yeah.
They didn't expect that.
Intimidated.
And I called them out right there. I said, you took me out.
Wow.
And you like basically blackmailed me to be an informant for my mosque. And I refused, and then things got worse. So, and right after that confrontation, right after that flight back home from Florida I'd already moved to Toronto, there was no problems. And since then, like, I've been off this watch list. And then soon after, Florida won their whole watch list suit against the government for putting all these Muslims in watch lists. And so there seems to be like victories, but it couldn't have happened without people speaking out.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing this intense
It's the first time
story.
I've been about it, so it feels good to get that off my chest. Yeah.
I'm glad that we got the opportunity to hear from you, and I think this is so crucial and so important so people know what you went through. We've unfortunately come over and to the end of our show, but I'd love to know what your final piece of advice for our youth is today. What do you want to leave us with?
I think that, especially as youth, these times are so hard. Like, I really empathize with the youth growing up today, with pandemics and wars and crazy presidents. I'm sorry. It's a challenging time. It's a very challenging time. And I think that every single youth has the power to literally change this world. And my advice would be that, look deep down within yourself, find that inner light in you, and just go with it. Don't listen to other people. Don't let people shut you down, shut your dreams down, especially if it's rooted in, a good intention. And ask God for help. That should be your only, the only thing that you really trust, and you should rely on that only. And, believe in yourself.
Thank you so much, Zainab, for everything you've shared with us today, for your courage, and for inspiring our youth to really be those activists within their communities.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It was our pleasure.
Okay.
You were just listening to the uMentor Talk Show. If you missed this or future shows, you can always hear the replay on the uMentor website under prior talk shows, and you can also watch us on YouTube, YouTube Live, or iTunes or SoundCloud podcasts, so you never miss another show. Did you know that we switched over to YouTube? If you didn't already, then you should now subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions for our current speaker or prior speakers, just please give us an email at mentor@emojioutreach.org, and we'll get feedback from our speakers. Be sure to tune in next week on Saturday at 3 p.m. for our next guest.